Oh my god! That was amazing!
Did you just get stomped
I just
by
got
a
stomped by a Tyrannocyte.
Dude. You got daddy Tyrannocyte.
Skilled,
That's beautiful.
outplayed.
Awesome.
Alright, welcome back, guys. Today is Termination Day, Rise of the Bio-Titan in Space Marine 2. There's a new operation mission, a new patch, and finally, lethal difficulty, which will be the focus here because I have a lot to say about it. Been playing off and on since like 7 in the morning today. Have about 10 or so runs under my belt so far. Want to give my impressions, share my thoughts, and converse with y'all about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this new patch. Now, obviously, difficulty has been a somewhat ugly and contentious subject for a lot of these types of games recently. Helldivers 2 kind of at the forefront of that discourse, and I want to reiterate here what I said in my last balance patch video. People are going to want different things out of these types of games, and that is okay. You don't have to agree with everyone's takes on balance. On topics like this, there isn't always a clear-cut right or wrong answer. That is fine. Some people want the pure power fantasy. Some people want that endorphin rush of barely surviving every other engagement. They want to be pushed to the brink. Some are going to want a mix of challenge and overpoweredness, and I think it's very possible for the devs to cater to all of those crowds, given enough time. Lethal, as the name might imply, is very much targeted at the more hardcore of crowds, though. It's designed to challenge the people who have every class maxed out. It's the hardest difficulty, it's endgame content that is designed to make you and the squad poop their proverbial pants as the hounds of hell descend on them from every possible direction. It is designed to make you crawl and scrap for your life, to consistently put you into dire situations that require skill, timing, and positioning to survive. It very much succeeds on that front. It's fun as hell. Really been enjoying it. But it is very much imperfect, and in my opinion needs quite a few tweaks to reach those peaks, as it were, before it hits a really good spot. Let me start off by saying I love the basic implementation of it so far. The framework, all that. Having 2 Raveners and a Lictor gang squad your team while a massive horde comes at you from all sides is exactly the threat level and excitement a lot of us wanted to see from an end-stage Tyranid invasion. The Hierophant Bio-Titan at the end of this mission is freaking epic. In general, the map is gorgeous. It's fun. I'm going to play the hell out of it. It is a unique, involved fight at that end finale that has you doing all sorts of stuff while endless waves crash on your heads. Would it have been cool to fight it in melee or execute it ourselves? Sure. It's also pretty freaking big. I get why they didn't. It could have very much been a hit a button and it dies kind of thing. It's a little bit more involved than that. I'm grateful for that. This map is hard. It's satisfying. It's fun as hell. It's really well put together. The fact that enemies aren't spongier in Lethal, they're the same HP, there's just more of them, is pretty much exactly what I wanted to see. Even the respawn timers have a cool implementation now where when you die initially, it's a 300-second, 5-minute cooldown, but every time a Majoris, Extremis, or Terminus enemy dies, that timer is reduced by 20 seconds. So if your team is killing well, they're going to be able to bring their teammates back much faster, and that's important because you're going to go down a lot in lethal difficulty. I think even really good players are going to be challenged to an extent on this front. Will it get better over the next couple of days and weeks? Will people manage to not go down so much? I'm sure. But on day 1, not very easy. So yeah, just to make it very clear, I am having a lot of fun. But we're going to spend a lot of time talking about stuff I don't like because there's more to talk about there. And if we can get some of those things changed, sorted, maybe we can have an even better experience. So Coherency is arguably the biggest change in lethal difficulty, and it is probably going to be the most contentious. For those who don't know, only on lethal, you will no longer be able to regen armor through gun strikes or finishers unless you are close to 1 or more teammates. That range is about 10 meters or so. It's signified by a triple sword icon with a white bar that turns red as you leave the radius of your squad. Once you are no longer near your friends, executions and gun strikes will not give you armor back, which means you are suddenly at the mercy of chip damage big time. Everything in the game, no matter how small, how insignificant it might have been in the past, suddenly becomes much more threatening when you don't have any armor, even if it's only a couple guns. It's intended, of course, to keep you all working together, fighting side by side as a squad, and to punish speedrunners or people who stray too far away from their team. And obviously, it's going to have massive implications on the core gameplay loop of Space Marine 2. Again though, only on Lethal. This mechanic does not exist for Ruthless or carry over to any difficulty below that. To be upfront with y'all, I don't hate the core idea of a coherency mechanic, but I do not personally like its implementation as it stands. I think both coherency and the armor changes that happen in this patch expose some of the lingering issues with enemies where certain attacks and weapons occasionally do unfair things and feel kind of bad. More importantly, I think it punishes random pub groups in a way that doesn't feel very good and isn't conducive to class balance and design, which is to say nothing of the obvious oversights and mechanical problems that exist with it right now. Number one, as last man standing, with your teammates fully dead, you cannot regain armor through gun strikes or assassinations, which is an insane oversight. It is a core principle of this game, around which everything else revolves, the ability to regain armor when playing well to prevent incoming damage. Without it, gameplay just straight up doesn't work. You can't dodge bullets like Neo in this game. There's some lateral dodging, but you're not going to be doing the Matrix here. Your armor is what tanks that damage. Without it, you are incredibly squishy. So I don't think there's any question in my mind that this was an oversight. It cannot be intended. They just don't want you to be able to clutch, to not be able to regain armor when you're the only one left alive. Number two, coherency as it stands reduces class diversity and combat roles to an extent. Maybe not to the degree that many people are complaining about on forums right now. I think some of that is a little bit overblown, but it is a valid concern. As a Vanguard or an Assault, my job is to dive the back line, shut down shooting, and isolate Majora's enemies, right? The grapple launcher, by its very nature, will carry me out of coherency the second I use it, as will the jump pack for Assault. As a sniper, it's my job to flank and fire from long distances where I may not always be right next to my homies. But if you make it so that I can't regen armor when I do those things, when I, play the class correctly, and force me to always be hugging my teammates' nuts, then I can't make exciting plays to the same extent, and overall, I think the gameplay suffers a bit. It's not that it makes it impossible, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think there's a decent argument that it can be less fun and more restrictive for no real good reason. Certain boss fights, like the Helldrake, actively require you to spread out over the map. You don't want to be in coherency, because to mark the sigil puzzles quickly, you need to be spread all over the stage, individually taking cover from, the Zinchian spawns that are coming in all over the place and Bale Flame raining down from above. Same thing with the Hive Tyrant. He actively forces you to split up by charging and lashing in between you and your teammates. That's very counterintuitive with this new coherency system, because while it seems to be trying to emulate Darktide's coherency, at the moment I think it's a pale imitation of it. It's worse in every way. Because yes, staying together does confer big benefits in Darktide, but it doesn't dramatically punish you when you're forced away from your team, and you still have a multitude of ways to generate it back, like going into melee and hitting things, which doesn't currently work in Space Marine 2. So at the moment, it's focused on punishing the player, not for rewarding them when they are in coherency, and that, in my opinion, is not great game design. Most classes right now don't have a secondary way outside of gun strikes and assassinations to get their armor back, and losing armor is an inevitability, no matter how well you're playing. So it becomes a question of, does this feel good, and why was it implemented in the first place? If it was to stop speedrunners, I'd argue just do what the Tide games do and make stuff like Lictors, Raveners, all that kind of stuff spawn on players who get too far away from the squad. It shouldn't be necessary to put explicit tethers in if walking off super alone to speedrun means the AI director gets a free pass to annihilate you, and people who play that way never end up winning missions because they're constantly spawning Lictors and other kinds of baddies and grabbers. Encouraging your squad to be together is a good thing. I just think they went too far here, because that leash range is really goddamn small, and it's so small that even a competent team of random players who aren't on comms together will suffer because of it. And in my opinion, lethal should be hard and dangerous because of the amount of enemies on screen and the damage they do in a fair way. Like, for example, if I mistime a parry on a warrior overhead, I should get chunked, maybe even downed, right? But I don't want to die because 2 gaunts and a single devourer are shooting me at point blank range, even though I'm shoving a chainsword up their ass, right? It's not fair that I don't have a way to generate armor, even though I'm 12 feet away from my team instead of 10. That's a little bit silly. Lethal should be very hard, but for the right reasons, and an artificial and restrictive leash that cuts down on the plays that certain classes can make, and should be encouraged to make, ain't it. To be clear, I do think some of the responses have maybe been a little bit melodramatic so far, on Reddit and the forums, blah, blah, blah. Y'all know the drill there. I've already completed a couple runs on the new map with Assault and made a huge impact. Assault is nowhere near unplayable on Lethal. It's great on Lethal, actually. Same with a bunch of the other classes. It is completely possible to still play around it, to move in and out of that leash range, gain armor, and then go back to do whatever you were doing. I just don't think it's necessary or where the difficulty should derive from, especially because the changes to armor highlight some of that lingering enemy jank. Rooms of devourers and shooters can kind of feel a bit cheap when your backline diving classes can't go after them and maintain coherency. Range units firing at point blank range when they're getting chainsawed and not switching to melee has always felt bad. If I'm up on top of you, you should immediately take out your running talons and not be able to shoot me with a point blank devour blast. Neurothrope green wave attacks on any elevation above or below you, even just a smidge, even like a foot above or below you, will often turn invisible. The entire wave and aura will, and then you don't know how to dodge it. Those kind of annoyances aren't such a big deal when you have tons of shield to work with and can easily get it back. And sure, okay, I got hit by one, I lost 2 shield, no big deal, it's fine. But it's amplified a lot more when now it can also chunk you for half your HP, and it wasn't your fault, it was just jank on their end. Zoanthrope Sonic Screams, those beams going through obstacles to chunk you 100 to 0, or generally being kind of unreadable and very difficult to gauge properly on when to evade, like hitting you out of mid-dive when it looks like you're not in their path, that kind of stuff. All of that is a lot more tolerable when you can be more than 10 feet away from your team and protect yourself just fine and have full shield, but on Lethal, some of that jank is amplified here. It's more noticeable and less forgivable with this very punishing coherency system. And I think that's really the crux of it. I can complete Lethal with any of these classes. I will. You'll see it in this video and in the coming days. There's going to be tons of gameplay from it. If I'm with a competent team, especially my team on comms, I can make any class feel great right now. I can make a huge impact, I can have a ton of fun, I can have that power fantasy and the skill expression and the challenge I want. I can stand in the middle of a massive horde with multiple specials trying to kill me, parry most or all of it, and if I play well, I'm gonna pull off something really cool and win. Feels amazing. But Coherency, in its current form, what I believe is a worse version of Dark Tides in basically every way, leads to a drastically different experience for random pub players than it does pre-made teams on comps. And that is something the Saber devs will need to take into account. Not everybody has the benefit of being able to play with their homie Gs. I'm not saying they should make lethal difficulty easier. I'm saying if they want to make it really hard, find other ways to do it that aren't going to require such a punishing system. Make the difficulty come from deadly enemies and the numbers of them, not from arbitrary hand-holding rules. I'm frankly not sure Coherency belongs in this game at all, but if it is going to exist, it needs to focus on benefiting the player rather than just straight punishing them for playing their classes correctly, right? But yeah, I think the framework is here and really isn't far off the mark at all. Already, even with some of those annoying design elements popping up here and there, I think Lethal is a great addition. It's challenging, it is a blast, it gets the heart rate up, it feels fair for the most part, and the changes to spawning are incredibly welcome. It is so goddamn fun to have a bunch of lictors and raveners attacking you from all sides while a massive wave attacks you at the same time. It's really cool. There have been some absolutely epic moments already on day one, and it is for sure gonna keep me coming back. So let me know what y'all think of the patch so far, what you think about the Coherency system. I will talk to you all in the next video. Any Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.
We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it because I'm the best player. I got to be alive for like 8% of that.
Take the shot. Stop.
Take the shot, brother.
Lieutenants choke on their meal.
That part is awesome, but so silly to me. It's like, why didn't they just do that from the beginning?
Yeah,
like,
I know, right?
What about killing a Titan allowed you to then shoot the tendril? Like, just shoot the tendril first.
Yeah. There's a lot of like stuff like that. We're like, no, our targeting systems don't work because of the bullshit in the void. But they work.